Massive blackout across Spain and Portugal, and even in some parts of France. Is this a possible cyber attack or infrastructure failure or both? Let's deep dive.
So let's dive into this. Millions across Spain and Portugal just suddenly plunged into darkness.
Yeah, quite dramatic. Major cities like Valencia, Barcelona, Madrid, Lisbon all hit hard.
It sounds like chaos, frankly. And what makes this really interesting for our deep dive today, I think, is the timing. Just days before this, Spain actually celebrated a full day running entirely on renewable energy. That was April 16th.
Right. Talk about a contrast. One day it's a green energy triumph. The next, widespread blackouts. It's a really stark juxtaposition.
Exactly. So our mission here is pretty straightforward. We want to take the information we've got on this exceptional and totally extraordinary event, as it was called, and really try to understand what went down.
And what hits you immediately is just the sheer scale of it, geographically speaking. This wasn't, some localized fault.
Right.
The reports point to power cuts right across major hubs, Valencia, Barcelona, Madrid, Lisbon, as you said.
And the knock-on effects must have been instant.
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. Traffic lights out. That means gridlock, which is exactly what was reported.
Yeah.
Then there's the transport paralysis. The entire Spanish rail network brought to a standstill. They had to evacuate trains, stations.
Wow, the whole network.
That's what the reports suggest. And even parts of the Madrid metro system experienced outages, too.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just ground transport, was it? Airports were also caught up in this.
Yeah, they faced big challenges. Porto and Faro, I understand, managed to keep things going with backup power, but, their capacity was still limited. Lisbon Airport, though, seems to have faced quite severe limitations. It really paints a picture of a system just pushed to its limit.
And the ripples, they actually spread further than Spain and Portugal, didn't they?
Indeed. And that's where you really see the interconnectedness of the European power grid.
Right.
Reports indicate that parts of France and even Belgium felt the effects, experiencing power disruptions. Well, French authorities, according to our sources, trace their issues back to what they called a complete failure in Spain's grid.
Okay.
It just underscores how quickly problems in one country can cascade across borders.
So this is where it gets really interesting, maybe a bit concerning. The information we have suggests a couple of potential reasons for this massive outage. One possibility mentioned is a fire over in France that damaged a high voltage line. One of those critical lines carrying huge amounts of power.
Yes, that's definitely part of the picture they're examining. A concrete event, the damaged transmission line.
So could that have been the trigger?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Correlation versus causation. The information we're working with is cautious about saying that line caused the whole thing.
Okay.
It's certainly being investigated, but the focus seems to be shifting, or at least widening, to another potential cause.
And you're talking about the possibility of a cyber attack. That seems to be, a major focus for the Spanish officials investigating this.
Exactly. The involvement of INCIBE, that's Spain's National Cybersecurity Institute, is pretty telling.
Right.
And the fact that they explicitly refuse to rule out a cyber attack, that definitely raises the stakes here.
Yeah, it suggests they're taking that possibility very seriously.
Precisely. If it is confirmed as a deliberate malicious act,
Yeah.
well, the implications for infrastructure security, not just in Spain, but across Europe, are profound. The way sources describe the event as unprecedented really underlines how unusual this was and how severe it could be if cyber foul play was involved.
So, okay, the investigation is ongoing, trying to piece it all together. But what were the immediate sort of real-world impacts for people beyond just, not having lights?
Well, the sources detail quite a few significant disruptions. We've touched on transport.
Yeah.
But communication networks also really suffered. Internet access just vanished in many areas. Lots of people reported losing mobile phone signal completely.
That sense of being cut off must have been unsettling, especially in big cities.
Deeply unsettling. There's one account we saw, a British expat in Barcelona who apparently had to go up to their rooftop just to find a signal.
Wow. That really brings it home, doesn't it? The extent of the communication blackout.
It does. And then you have businesses forced to shut, people reportedly trapped in elevators. These are the everyday consequences that just hammer home how much we rely on a stable power supply.
Absolutely. Even essential services like hospitals.
Yeah.
I mean, they mostly kept running on backup generators, right?
Oh, mostly, yes. But they still had to postpone non-emergency procedures, which obviously puts extra strain on emergency services downstream.
It really shows how interconnected everything is.
Exactly. A power outage on this scale, it's never just about the power. It ripples out transport, communication, business, healthcare. It's a stark reminder of these dependencies.
And how vulnerable we can be when something foundational like electricity fails so broadly. Now, the Spanish grid operator, Red Electrica, the people actually responsible for keeping the grid stable, they describe this outage as exceptional and totally extraordinary.
That's powerful language coming from them. Their job is stability, so for them to use words like that, it tells you something.
Yeah. And they also estimated quite a significant repair time, didn't they? Something like 6 to 10 hours.
That's right, 6 to 10 hours, which, given the millions affected, really highlights the complexity of whatever went wrong.
Right. Suggests it wasn't a simple fix.
Exactly. It points to potentially significant damage, or at least complex steps needed to safely bring everything back online. They activated restoration plans. Sure, they have procedures. But that extraordinary label suggests this event really pushed beyond the standard scenarios they planned for.
And we are getting reports, as we're recording this, that power is gradually being restored in some areas, which is obviously good news.
Very welcome news, yes. The fact that authorities are also involving international agencies in the investigation is significant too.
Why is that?
Well, it suggests they're taking the potential for this being a wider systemic issue very, very seriously, given how linked the European grid is.
Right.
Understanding the root cause is vital, not just for Spain and Portugal, but for the stability of the whole continental system.
So determining if it was an accident, a technical fault, or something deliberate.
Yes. That determination has huge, far-reaching implications for energy security, for infrastructure resilience right across Europe.
Okay, so let's try and pull this together then. We've had this massive, really unprecedented blackout hitting millions in Spain and Portugal.
With knock-on effects felt even in France and Belgium.
And the exact cause.
Yeah.
Still under investigation. Could be technical, that power line fire in France, or it could be the more worrying scenario of a cyber attack.
Right. Both possibilities seem firmly on the table.
The disruptions were just widespread.
Yeah.
Hitting transport, communication, daily life, businesses, everything.
Yeah, a major shock to the system. Power is slowly coming back now.
But those fundamental questions remain. What exactly triggered this? And crucially, how do we stop it happening again?
And that description from the Spanish grid operator, exceptional and totally extraordinary, that really sticks, doesn't it? It sums up the severity.
It really does.
Yeah.
And, that kind of brings us to a final thought for you listening. In this world that's just increasingly digital, increasingly interconnected, how truly resilient are our critical infrastructures? Like really resilient, especially something as fundamental as the power grid.
Yeah. And you add in the ongoing shift to renewables, which brings its own complexities, plus the ever-present threat of cyber attacks.
Exactly. What are the potential consequences when something like this happens? This event in Spain and Portugal, it feels like a powerful, maybe uncomfortable reminder.
A reminder of that delicate balance and the potential for these cascading failures in the complex systems we rely on every day.
Definitely something to think about.
Comment your thoughts on this story. Thanks.